The wind was unusually cold for the early evening, sweeping across the empty road that led out of the city and toward the old industrial zone. Inside a small, abandoned storage warehouse on the outskirts, the faint echo of dripping water was the only sound, until a soft, trembling breath joined it. Lena opened her eyes slowly, her vision blurry at first, then sharpening enough for her to understand the situation she was in. Her wrists were tied with thick ropes behind her back, the coarse strands biting into her skin with every tiny movement. Her ankles were bound as well, forcing her into a rigid, uncomfortable position on the dusty concrete floor. She tried to remember what happened, but her memories blurred into a chaotic mess. She had been walking home from her part-time job at the cafe, the streets were unusually quiet, she heard footsteps behind her, and then, nothing. Everything after that was a blank void. Her heartbeat quickened, she pulled her wrists gently, testing the knots, but the ropes only tightened. Panic threatened to rise, but she forced herself to take a deep breath. She needed to stay calm if she wanted to survive this. She scanned the warehouse again. The room was large and almost empty except for broken wooden crates pushed into corners and a metal door far on the opposite side. No windows. No obvious escape. Her mouth felt dry. Whoever took her had not spoken a word, hadn't shown their face. Why would anyone want to abduct someone like her? She was not rich, not influential, not connected to anything dangerous. She was just Lena, a quiet student trying to get through life. Moments passed, the cold air cutting deeper into her as time crawled forward. Every sound made her flinch, the creak of metal, the distant hum of highway traffic, the flutter of plastic sheets in the corner. She wished someone, anyone, would find her. She wished she could scream, but her voice came out weak and hoarse. Meanwhile, miles away, a young man named Aiden stepped off his motorbike near the edge of the same industrial zone. He was tall, athletic, and had a calm but focused expression. He worked part-time as a mechanic and part-time as a volunteer in community patrol groups. That night, he had received a call from a friend who reported seeing a suspicious dark van driving repeatedly near the university area. Aiden, who knew the streets better than most, decided to follow the lead. His instincts told him something was wrong. He walked through the dimly lit area, scanning each warehouse with a flashlight. Most of the buildings had been abandoned for years, the city never bothered to renovate or demolish them. If I were hiding someone, he muttered to himself, this place would be perfect. He reached the warehouse with the rusted metal door and noticed something strange, fresh tire marks near the entrance. Someone had been here recently. Aiden's pulse quickened. He approached silently, listening carefully. At first, he heard nothing. Then, a faint sound. Like someone breathing or shifting inside. He stepped back slightly, debating how to approach this. He didn't want to scare whoever was inside, and he didn't know whether the kidnappers were still here. He decided to send a message to the local patrol group, but before he could, he heard a muffled whimper. That was enough. He pressed his hand against the door. It wasn't locked. Very slowly, he pushed it open just enough to slip inside. The warehouse was dim, with only a few weak rays of moonlight seeping through gaps in the roof. He let his eyes adjust to the dark. That's when he saw her. At first, he could only make out a small figure curled up on the ground, but as he stepped closer, the outline of ropes around her became clear. Lena heard the faint sound of footsteps and tensed, squeezing her eyes shut, expecting the kidnapper to return. But the voice that followed didn't match the one she feared. Hey, Aiden whispered softly. It's okay, I'm here to help you. Her eyes opened instantly. She tried to speak but the words stuck in her throat. She blinked rapidly, still unsure if he was real or just a hopeful imagination. He crouched down carefully, hands raised slightly to show he meant no harm. I'm Aiden, he said in a calm tone. I'm going to untie you, all right? Lena nodded slightly, relief washing over her. Aiden quickly examined the ropes. They were tightly knotted, clearly done by someone who knew how to restrain a person properly. He pulled a small pocket knife from his jacket and began cutting through the layers. As soon as her hands were free, Lena moved them weakly to the front, rubbing her wrists where the skin had reddened. Take your time, Aiden said gently. You're safe now. As she tried to stand, her legs wobbled from hours of restriction. Aiden steadying her by holding her arm lightly. She leaned on him instinctively, feeling warmth and safety for the first time since waking up. Do you know who did this? He asked carefully. She shook her head. No, I don't remember. I was just walking, and then, everything went black. Aiden frowned. This wasn't random. Someone planned this. But why? He helped her toward the door, keeping quiet in case the kidnappers were nearby. When they stepped outside, the air felt fresher, less oppressive. The moonlight washed over Lena's pale face, and Aiden noticed her shivering. "Here," he said, taking off his jacket and draping it over her shoulders. "We need to get you somewhere safe." Lena's breathing slowly calmed now that the warehouse was behind them. She kept glancing nervously over her shoulder, afraid someone would appear. Aiden noticed. "They're not coming back," he assured her. "Not tonight." She didn't speak for several minutes, simply following him toward his bike where streetlights glowed faintly in the distance. When they reached it, she finally broke the silence. Why did you help me? You could have ignored it." Aiden stared at her softly. "Because nobody deserves to be left alone in a place like that. You needed help. That's enough reason." Her eyes shimmered with gratitude. Aiden gently helped her onto the bike, adjusting her position so she wouldn't fall. But before he could start the engine, they both heard the distant rumble of an approaching vehicle. A black van. Lena froze instantly, gripping the bike seat tightly. Aiden spun around, immediately alert, his muscles tensing. The van slowed down as it approached the warehouse. Its headlights swept across the area, illuminating the ground like searching eyes. "It's them," Lena whispered, her voice trembling. Aiden's jaw tightened. He didn't know how many people were inside, but he knew one thing: they needed to leave immediately. He started the engine, revved it hard, and sped off in the opposite direction. The sudden motion made Lena cling to his waist. He didn't mind, he wanted her to hold on tightly. The van noticed them and accelerated, tires screeching loudly on the pavement. Lena's heartbeat pounded in her ears, fear gripping her once again. Aiden maneuvered the bike through narrow abandoned streets skillfully, weaving between piles of debris and old machinery. "Hold on," he shouted over the roaring wind. The van gained speed quickly, but the bike had the advantage of agility. Aiden took sharp turns, sped through open gates, and finally reached the main road where traffic was sparse. The van was still behind them but slowly falling back. After several intense minutes, the van disappeared from view. Aiden finally slowed down once they reached a safer district closer to the town center. Lena's arms loosened slightly around him, but her breathing still trembled. "Are you okay?" he asked, turning his head slightly. She nodded weakly, though she clearly wasn't. "We're going to the police station," he said firmly. "They need to know someone is doing this." "No," Lena grabbed his arm suddenly. "What if they come after me again? What if the police can't protect me?" Aiden paused, understanding her fear. "Then you're not going through this alone," he replied. "I'll stay until you're safe." She searched his face, looking for any sign of insincerity, but found none. He took her to a small 24-hour clinic first, where a nurse examined her injuries. Nothing severe: bruises, rope burns, dehydration. While Lena rested on the small hospital bed, Aiden waited outside, pacing slightly. He replayed everything in his mind, trying to piece together why someone would kidnap a random girl. When the nurse finally left, Aiden stepped inside quietly. Lena sat upright now, holding a cup of warm tea. "You look better," he said gently. "I feel better," she replied softly. "Because of you." He sat down on the chair beside her bed. For a moment, they simply looked at each other, two strangers brought together by something unexpected and terrifying. "What if they wanted something from me?" Lena whispered suddenly. "What if they try again?" Aiden leaned forward. "They won't. Not while I'm here. But, you don't even know me." Aiden smiled faintly. "I don't need to know someone to do the right thing." Lena lowered her eyes, overwhelmed by gratitude and disbelief. "I don't know how to thank you." "You already did," he whispered. "By surviving." After she was discharged, Aiden walked her outside. The night had deepened, but the city lights made the streets feel warmer. The clinic was close to the residential area. Still, Lena was hesitant to go home alone. Aiden noticed. "If you want, I can walk you home." She hesitated only a moment before nodding. As they walked along the quiet streets, Lena opened up slowly. She talked about her job, her dreams, her family living far away. Aiden listened, offering gentle responses. The fear began melting from her voice. When they finally reached her apartment building, Lena stopped near the entrance. The soft glow of the lobby lights reflected in her eyes. "I feel safe," she said quietly. For the first time since, she swallowed. "Thank you." Aiden nodded. "If you ever need anything, you can call me." He handed her a small card with his number. Lena held it carefully, as if it were something precious. She turned to go inside, but paused. "Aiden." "Yes. Can you stay for a little longer? Just until I'm sure no one followed us." Aiden gave a reassuring smile. "Of course." He waited outside until her lights turned on in the apartment window. When she looked down and saw him still standing there, she finally allowed herself to relax. She waved weakly, and he waved back before walking away. But as Lena lay in her bed that night, she couldn't shake the memory of the warehouse. Nor could she forget the way Aiden appeared at the perfect moment, calm, steady, determined. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring. She didn't know if the kidnappers would return. But she did know one thing. She had found someone who wouldn't let her face the darkness alone. And somewhere across the city, Aiden sat on the edge of his bed, replaying the entire night. He wasn't going to let this go. He needed answers. Someone had targeted Lena, and he intended to find out who, and why. Because sometimes, fate doesn't ask permission before bringing two lives together. Sometimes the bond formed in fear becomes something stronger. And sometimes, a stranger becomes the only person who truly shows up when the world falls apart.